Hey guys, it's welcome to Biomassed episode 23. Thank you for tuning in tonight. It's good to have you here and glad you're listening. So we're gonna start with some introductions here. I'm Pokey Dravon. We'll start at the top of the list, so Iron Wolf.
This is Wolf Saber, CPM1 council member. I'm here to talk about a bunch of things.
Sounds good. SirManBoy.
This is SirManBoy with Molan Labe. I'm a director over there and a member of CPM1.
And Soraya Xel.
I'm Soraya Xel. I'm a co-host here on Biomassed, a member of CPM1, and a leader of the Top Men Alliance.
And as I said before, I'm Pokey Dravon. I'm not on CPM, but I'm a co-host here on Biomassed. So
You're the only one not on the CPM here today.
Yeah. I feel like the black sheep in the group, but I think I'll manage. But yeah, we got some good topics lined up for you guys tonight. Hopefully some interesting stuff with the recent changes and thoughts about future updates and whatnot. So we'll start off as usual with a CPM update. We got 3 guys here that are all on the council, so I'll let them lead it off.
Really all that we got for this week is that we did meet yesterday, actually, to just kind of go over our kind of priority list for what we'd like to recommend get looked at for the next hotfix, and kind of prioritize our list.
Now, when you say you guys meet, are you meeting with members of CCP? And
Not this week. Not
just amongst yourselves? Okay.
We just had a group meeting of us. And that happens from time to time, usually, when we want to just kind of organize our thoughts apart from, CCP. And then generally they'll meet with us prior to each hotfix and go over what they have on the list and what we have on our list, and somewhere around there you end up with a narrative.
Yeah, I think that's pretty good. I mean, you really want to make sure your ideas are clear and uniform, and when you present them, to make sure that it actually goes through, and it's not a hodgepodge of random ideas. So that's good to hear. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I also find our face-to-face meetings pretty useful for a completely different reason. Sometimes you get so stuck in a mode of discourse and argument via text that you sort of lose touch with how much you like everybody on the CPM and you enjoy the conversations.
Yeah.
So it's nice to get a reset and just sort of see everybody face to face and kind of clear the air on some things and reach a level of normalcy that sometimes the text can sort of take away from us from time to time.
Everybody is like, and this goes for like forum trolls and everything. Everyone's nicer when you talk to people on voice.
Absolutely.
Even some of the most trolly
person.
forum posters on the game can be like really cool, really smart people when you actually just chat with them. So
yeah, Jason kind of mentioned that before, that tensions can run high via text because you miss out on a lot of the voice and whatnot, and what people are how they're saying things or how things are being presented. It gets pretty tense at times. So it's good to actually talk to somebody and actually go face to face. You can actually hear how they're actually saying things, and typically people are a lot less hostile sounding than they really are via text. So that's good to hear that you guys are getting along. I know we had Zatara and Xel kind of nipping each other last week. It was always fun. But
was I nipping last week? I thought I just wasn't paying attention last week.
He kind of jumped at you a little bit.
Okay. Yeah, I think I vaguely remember that. Just for the record, I paid like the least amount of attention to last week's episode as like any episode I've ever paid attention to anything. So it was like I did my intro, and I think I might have made a couple of remarks in the middle somewhere, and then the show ended, and that was kind of that.
You can tell something's wrong when Xel isn't talking constantly, so I should have known.
I was just kind of zoned. I don't know. It happens.
Yeah. All right. Well, if that's what you guys got for a CPM update, let's move on to our next topic, which is going to be kind of going on about the Hotfix Delta. I know we didn't talk much about it last week, so I actually had a chance to play a little bit more. It's been kind of busy around my end here. So. Yeah. People say, "Oh man, the bolt pistol's OP." I'm like, it can't be that bad. I mean, it was so hard to use before that. I like, how bad could they have actually broken it?
That's the impression you get until you equip one. I'm like, all right, let's try this. I got a standard bolt pistol. Let's do this. And I got like 3 kills in like a row, and I'm like, okay, this might be a little OP.
Yeah, I think my first experience was I'm like, okay, let's try this. I went on a corner, one shot a scout in the chest, and he fell over dead. I was like, holy shit. And it kind of kept going, where it's just kill after kill. And finally, the Logi in my squad took his repair tool off the heavy and put it on me because I was getting more kills with the bolt pistol.
Nice.
I
And
mean,
me
like-
running in a BPO scout suit at the time, I'm just like, yeah, this might be a little completely broken, so we might have to dial this back a little bit. But it was fun while it lasted.
Yeah, I mean, it feels to me like, there's a rate of fire nerf, and I think that probably will help. I haven't actually tried my bolt pistol since the rate of fire nerf, but
It made it easier to use.
okay, yeah, that actually doesn't surprise me all that much, because the problem with me was really just getting the second or third shots to aim true. But I mean, the thing to me is I was sitting at I was on Ashland, the map with the pipes, and there was someone up on the top, and I'm standing there on the ground. I'm just like, aim down the side, aim for the head, pop, he died. And I'm like, okay, so what this is a medium range sniper rifle that I can use while standing.
With
Without
aim
sweat.
assist and high hip fire accuracy.
Well, I can't. Aim assist doesn't help me because I use a keyboard, and that is one of the ways that controllers get to be OP. So I don't get that joy.
Nonetheless,
Yeah,
it's firing from the hip is just way too accurate with
Yeah,
the dark too.
I actually have to point at things for them to take damage. Yeah.
I actually noticed that thread. I was kind of interested. Can you actually modify the aim assist on a per weapon basis? I know you mentioned that.
It has been done before. I'm pretty sure the bolt pistol is not an exception to that, but we have to find out just in case.
Now, do
But
you
the
think
thing
that will
is,
cause?
I felt it was OP with a keyboard and mouse, and that's not going to be changed by affecting by changing the aim assist.
Yeah, that was
So
my concern.
I don't think that's the sole problem, and I would rather try and find something that will fix the it holistically. Because I mean the thing is, I do like it, and that in that role of being like a single shot high damage type of thing, almost like a pocket sniper, but it's gotta be weaker than it is overall.
Well, functionally, numbers aside, it feels right. It feels perfect now. It feels like it's a weapon you go out to a shooting competition with.
Yeah,
Whereas
it's got that
before,
feel.
it was slightly jarring to use, and it made it a little bit more difficult than normal for the average player.
Yeah, it definitely performs kind of like a Magnum revolver sort of thing, which I really like. I think that, like you said, it feels right. It just it performs a little too well for what it's doing. So I think some additional tweaks it'll be better. But yeah, I think in general it's a step in the right direction, just too far. So let's dial it back, and I think it'll be a pretty cool gun. Another thing I was playing with was the ion pistol. Didn't get as much time with it as I wanted to, but damn, that thing fires fast. It's kind of cool. I still feel like I couldn't really get the kills with it. Maybe it might just be my lack of gun game, but it feels better. I'm just not sure if it's quite there yet.
And the fact it's being overshadowed by the bolt pistol.
Yeah, that doesn't help because I get into an engagement and was doing well, and then my head would explode with a couple shots. So that was a bit of a problem, but we'll see. I admittedly didn't get to play around with it as much as I wanted to, particularly with the charge mechanic. I still don't like the fact that you have to overheat it to use the charge. Basically, the decreased overheat is better, but yeah.
How does everybody feel about how the SMG came out of the change?
I think it still felt comparable. It's still performing pretty well, as far as I could tell.
Yeah, it feels pretty good. I feel like it has lost a little something, which clearly statistically it did, but it's still a very competitive weapon.
Yeah, it wasn't nerfed into the ground, which is what I was a little concerned about because it was, admittedly, I've always maintained that I felt the SMG was a pretty well balanced weapon, and I didn't want them to change it too much in an attempt to make the other sidearms up to par. And I think that it turned out pretty good. It's a little different, like you said, but overall, I think it's performing, about the same as it used to. It's not completely broken, so that's good to see.
Well, there was also generally we didn't actually pass on a lot of the weapons to make them feel more niche to their racial profiles. So with the SMG, it should perform much better than the MagSec in close quarter combats. But in an aim down sight battle, it's going to lose to the MagSec.
Yeah, and that's been a big complaint of mine for a long time, that the weapons don't quite seem to fit the racial theme they were going for, and it's good to see you guys are actually making that more of a truth. I guess that it actually feels like I'm using a Caldari SMG rather than I'm using a really crappy Minmatar SMG that's gray and blue.
On the non-weapon front, and I'm sure there's a lot of Logis out there that'll agree with me. I mean, I'm absolutely in love with that injector. That thing is fantastic, and you can tell that it's doing a lot to help people take a little more damage as they're getting back up. I mean, clearly there are still situations where people are getting picked up at the wrong time and people are getting killed as a result, but I've picked up a guy in some questionable, a couple of people in some questionable situations over the past week, and nothing too bad. And it gave him just enough HP to get out of it, So I'm really enjoying that change quite a bit.
Yeah, I will admit I stand corrected that I've always said, I don't know if the shield bonus would actually really make a difference. But like you said, I've been playing around with the injector a little bit, and I think that it really does actually, like you said, give him a little bit of extra buffer to kind of get out of the shitstorm. I mean, people are going to get picked up in bad situations regardless. I mean, we all wish we had a, accept or deny a revive button, but that's not going to happen. So I think this is a pretty good stopgap to kind of make it a little less painful when you're being picked up in a dangerous firefight.
Yeah. And now if we can just get rid of the phantom icon for the pickups and the fact that the injector simply doesn't work sometimes, then we'll be on to something. But as far as its performance when it does pick somebody up, it's really great right now.
Yeah, that's been a problem that's persisted for a while. Have you guys hammered out why that happens? Why it just doesn't perform sometimes?
We don't know why, but it's definitely on CCP's radar of things that we are going to try to fix.
Yeah, no, it's. I've gotten killed many times dancing around doing the Logi dance, trying to find the sweet spot to pick the guy up. I'm sure you've all seen it before.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I hate it when it's up in the air.
Right.
You got to jump up then stab.
Yeah, it's one of those magical glitches we've had forever and we've never gotten a fix for. And it's just you learn to deal with it. But when new players come in, they're like my injector's not working. I'm like, yeah, it just does that,
Yeah.
It's part of the game. It's a feature, not a bug. It's what adds challenge and skill to loggying.
See, it reminds me of a story back in closed beta where I fell for the hidden feature thing where the latency was getting so bad in early closed beta, back during the early Mordu trials, and I thought that the game had a feature where your gun would jam when you were reloading it, as it would reload, and then it would get stuck in the reload animation. He kept reloading the gun.
Yeah, those are good times.
So I was looking for a skill that would reduce the chance to have gun jams. And I'm like, they should really add that. That'd be cool because I like that feature. And come to find out, the system just sucked because the servers were broken as hell. But it's one of those fun closed beta stories that I remember. But yeah, anything else you guys got for Delta you want to talk about?
It's not Delta related so much because it went in before, but matchmaking is making the game really fun right now. I had my doubts about it one day because it seemed like every match I went into I got smashed, but overall, almost every single time I go into a match, it's considerably better than it used to be.
Yeah,
So-
I love the new matchmaking. I know there's been a few people who've complained about, but I think overwhelmingly positive in general.
Yeah. Much, much better. Games are a lot more fun. They go down to clones more often. Really good stuff.
Well, it's good to see that CCP is actually coming out and saying, if you get into a game that's a total stomp, send us the time and date or a screenshot so we can actually look into who was involved and why it happened and actually figure out where those problems are occurring.
And I've been harping on that too. It's really important that CCP Rotati gets these things, so
Yeah,
you can
you were
actually
getting made
fix the
fun of
formula.
for how many times you said it. It was like, there was someone who's like, in before, and it was some replacement name of replacement acronym for IWS, and before he comes in, it says to email CCP Rotati with your screenshot, and I'm like, no, I'll take this one. Email your screenshot to CCP Rotati.
Oh, I sent one in. It was a pretty bad stomp. It was like 120 clones versus 30 left.
Yeah,
Jeez.
but I mean, he was actually, there was a post that Rotati made that I don't think he's followed up on it yet, but he had noted that he might make a post with some of the data that was found on how much more balanced it was than it used to be.
Mhm.
I don't know if there is such a post coming. I'm gonna nudge him on that because I would like to see how that actually worked out.
And his system's really, really good. I mean, we've obviously all have had a chance to read up on it and kind of understand the rationale behind it. But I think one thing that a system like that can't take into account, because it's really just taking raw performance numbers, is the effect of really effective vehicle users. I find that sometimes they'll create a situation where there's going to be a stop just based on the fact that they're just awesome in vehicles, and people who are awesome in vehicles, even despite all the changes to vehicles, still can change the tide of a match. So I don't know if a system that's based off of raw numbers can ever really account for that, because they're just going to look like a high-performing player.
I can see the angry vehicle user posts now about the
Yeah.
idea of a modifier for vehicle users.
Oh no, and I'm not really saying that there should be, but I think that might account for why some matches become one-sided in many cases, because that's what I've seen anecdotally.
Yeah, it could, and fixing the balance on those will help. There's been a lot of discussion about vehicle balance again with the ADS changes.
Yeah, I actually I have to thank you guys for upping the velocity on the plasma cannon. I actually killed a dropship of the plasma cannon for the first time in a situation that was actually
Wow.
like a combat situation. The only other time was when the guy was trying to squish me and just screwed up. But I actually shot the guy out of the sky with the plasma cannon, so that was pretty cool. But yeah, the dropships are pretty squishy now. I gotta admit, I'm able to put down a ton of damage with just a basic swarm launcher, and they've got to get the hell out of there very quickly. I know there's a lot of complaints about that in the forums, and AV and vehicle balance has always been an issue in trying to balance, and it's never a clean fix, and I'm not sure we'll ever really reach a perfect balance of it. It's going to be back and forth probably till the end of Dust. I mean, looking at the numbers, are dropships appearing to underperform now, or is this mostly just an anecdotal?
I honestly don't have those numbers yet. But
And I'm afraid it's going to take a little bit longer time to figure that out, because there's going to be a whole bunch of initial quitters. Then it'll start to normalize again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was just curious because I mean that's.
But I mean, the honest truth is that they were so far above that it would be very, very. I would be shocked if they were what I would call underperforming.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a self-proclaimed vehicle guy, but I cannot fly dropships worth a damn, so I can't really comment on the actual survivability firsthand. So I was kind of curious because I think people like when CCP actually puts out the numbers and shows, hey, we're looking at the numbers. Here's what they are. Here's why we think we should change this, rather than making changes seemingly just on a whim like they were before.
It'd be nice if these numbers were public, but I can also I think I can think of reasons they are not. And I think that the big thing would be a tendency for everyone to exploit the one that is mathematically in the lead.
Right, but I'm just saying, like, if they can go, okay, we're looking at the numbers post Hotfix Delta, and we're seeing that dropships are performing at this level, which is below what we feel they should be. I'm not saying you need to release everything, but just showing that we have a reason why we're making this change or not making a change. So I hope that they continue with that methodology.
That was actually something I was going to comment on the matchmaking discussion. Was that I was frankly shocked that matchmaking thread came out in the way that it did, where he had graphs and charts and like, this is how we did matchmaking and here's how we want to do matchmaking. What do you think? That was to me extremely unexpected and extremely stunning, because every previous matchmaking change for the last year has been like, well, we changed matchmaking. How'd you change it? We changed it.
Fucking magic is what it was.
and for him to go out and be like, here's how this works, that was fantastic.
Well, when they were making changes and the response was, do you guys even play your own game? Because that doesn't make any sense at all. That's a problem. But I think when you really actually look at the raw data, I'm always impressed by the types of data that you guys record and actually track. And you're able to actually analyze that. That's pretty awesome, because then you aren't relying on necessarily just the anecdotal, testimonies of people playing. You're actually looking at how things are actually working in practice. So I think that's really cool. I'm glad to see that they're finally making that shift. I'm not sure if it's,
That's the big thing with having a numbers guy in the lead,
You
You have a statistics guy running this. You got to imagine that statistics plays pretty heavily into his decisions. I mean, I don't know how much statistics was or wasn't involved in previous balancing, but I know that Rattati is really good with numbers. So
yeah, he's pretty awesome.
A finance guy, You guys may or may not know, but it's my personal curiosity. Do you know who made the call to put him in charge of Dust, because it seems like in terms of
from
what
what I recall, CCP Rouge made that decision. I think
He did.
yeah, because I mean, given the situation we're in and the limitations, it seems like it was pretty much the perfect choice for
because I
who to put
mean
in charge.
CCP Rouge is more or less the guy, the management for the top in charge guy of that whole Dust Legion thing. There's obviously stuff that goes up to the board, but a lot of stuff is somewhere under him.
Yeah, that's just personal curiosity, because I mean, I think you'd find, despite people complaining about certain changes, overall there's overwhelming support for Rattati and the work that he's done with Team Rattati, Logi Bro, and whoever else is involved. I don't have the exact names personally.
Yeah, Logibro's been a great help to CCP Rattati as well, helping him do all sorts of other testing.
Yeah, I mean, some of the stuff that they've pulled off is pretty awesome. So I think we're all very happy that changes are happening, which should have happened a long time ago. But better later than never, I guess. So.
Yeah, and it's not just their intelligence that's impressive, man. It's their enthusiasm. It's really inspiring to see those two guys care about the game as much as they do. And I think that's something that the player base really should be aware of, because I'll be in squads and I hear so many rumors about CCP's doing this with the game, and I always kind of chuckle because obviously in my position, and Soraya and IWS can say the same. We've certainly get information that's to the contrary of what a lot of the rumors are. And it's awesome that that we know, and I wish the rest of the player base knew just like how awesome those two guys are to be working on the project right now. Like obviously we all wish the game was in a better place overall, but the fact that the two guys that are probably most involved are super competent and really enthusiastic and passionate about the game, like I said, is really inspiring. So.
Well, that's what you get when you put people who play the game in charge instead of people who just develop the game. I think the fact that you actually have people who play the game actively and enjoy it, that's a big difference.
You have between the two of them, you have CCP Rattati, whose first posts on the forums were entirely him being a player of the game, not as a developer, and then you have CCP Logibro, who was a player of the game before he worked for CCP. So.
Yeah, and I think it's when you make it less of a job and more of a passion of something you enjoy doing. That's when you really get the good stuff. And it's a shame we didn't have it before, but I've said it a million times, but it's glad that we're finally getting it now. So props to those guys. It's much appreciated from the player base. So yeah, if there's nothing else for Delta, we could probably move on to something else. Want to talk about just Hotfix Echo or whatever they're going to call it. Any wish list, speculation, things you'd like to see, potential changes that came in Delta that you want changed, again in Echo. Just any thoughts from you guys?
I'm, certainly, and I think the rest of the guys are definitely in favor of this too. Just getting the loyalty store in order in terms of, having all the gear in it that needs to be in it, and also reevaluating the pricing structure. Things related to that, I think, would be, a really good focus for this update. So that's definitely, the area that I'm hoping gets a lot of attention.
Yeah, I know Cross2, another member of CPM, has been getting some posts out on the forums asking for feedback specifically about the support role and logistics and commandos as well. Not saying that's going to be an Echo, but just collecting feedback from people and kind of hammering out some ideas of things that might need to change and whatnot. I think people can pretty much agree that the Logis definitely need some attention in their bonuses and maybe some of their base stats and whatnot. So, if you are active on the forums, go take a look at that thread. I think it's in the feedback section. It's really good stuff. Throw your 2 cents in.
Yeah, Cross's work on support issues is unparalleled. The guy is awesome when it comes to that stuff, and I'm honored that a lot of times he'll come to me for my 2 cents on those issues too. But clearly, and I'll be the first to admit it, Cross is sort of the leader in the CPM when it comes to support play and Logi related issues. The guy is definitely on the ball as far as that's concerned.
Yeah, absolutely. I've talked with him a lot about support related issues, and just again him getting my feedback as a veteran player. It's always, as you said, an honor to be asked those sort of questions by someone who's actually able to invoke change in the system. So again, props to Cross. He unfortunately can't make it to the shows very often anymore, but
Yeah,
check out his threads. They're
his
awesome.
Sundays he's got something Sunday nights every week. So, yeah, and I know Cross makes threads, Iron Wolf makes threads. I actually don't think I've made a thread since I got elected, but my tendency is to respond to others in varying levels of troll.
You're gonna make people hate the CPM, you know that, right?
Here's the thing. I get more forum likes when I troll. I write like a serious post, I get like 1 or 2 likes, and I'm like, yeah, this is a great idea. I'll pass this on. I'll get like a like, maybe 2 likes. I troll and I get like 12.
Your job isn't to get likes, though. It's to be productive.
You're the exact opposite of me.
Those 12 likes are Hinox and 11 of his alts.
That's entirely likely.
Iron Wolf, on the other hand, is very productive, but the way in which it's presented usually just pisses people off, and it comes off as trolling, so you have to take it with a spoonful of salt.
Well, the thing is people and sometimes people don't realize this, but I'll have like a troll response to someone because their thread was ridiculous in my opinion and deserved to be called out as ridiculous. But then through later discussion, we'll come across a point that I'm like, yeah, I genuinely agree with that. That makes sense. And then they're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, just don't go overboard. Like I said, you don't want people hating the CPM and then refusing to give proper feedbacks. I mean, I think we all want the game to get better, so do try to keep it as productive as possible. But yeah, another thing for Echo, for me personally, is that I'd like to, like I said, as a vehicle guy, I'd like to see some time to look at some of the vehicles and the variants that have since been removed and possibly getting those back in and maybe reevaluating how they perform to make vehicle play a little more interesting, because as anyone can tell you, it's extremely bland in terms of fitting and options available to you, aside from maybe an assault dropship, because that is an actual specialty vehicle rather than your standard stock one.
Something that I've been really trumpeting for probably the last month or so, and I'm not the only one who realizes this too. And I don't know if it's something that will be addressed this time around or how long it'll be before this really gets the attention that it deserves. But I'm really a big proponent of increased compensation to change player behavior, to get people out of that playing scared mode and into playing for the win. And I'm hoping that's something that we can definitely address here before long. I don't know if it'll be sooner or later. But I think that has a definite chance to increase, the fun and the action and the battles, by a lot. Actually,
you can be more aggressive when you have money.
Yeah, for sure.
And I even saw on Google Plus, like this week, I saw a comment from someone saying they were thinking about quitting the game because they were running out of ISK and couldn't keep enough ISK, to afford stuff.
It's also a little frustrating, I think, that it often feels like your performance in the game doesn't necessarily affect the ISK payout very much. I mean, sometimes it does. Other times I feel like, wow, I kicked ass that round, and then I'm like, I get the same payout I usually do. And I think that's also kind of disheartening when it feels like your performance doesn't actually mean anything in the gameplay.
Yeah, we've got to definitely reward people who are playing hard, who are performing, and we've got to actually curtail, all these people who ride the coattails of everyone else by just kind of showing up in the game and then just sort of goofing off. One of the best things that we did, recently, or CCP did recently rather, is, with these new accounts, only letting people start off with like 25,000 ISK. So as to avoid all this, fraudulent behavior that was going on with respect to ISK transfers and things like that. And we need to sort of take that same approach with people who aren't really giving it their all in matches. Like if you don't perform and you don't do anything, you should barely get paid, if at all. And the people who are trying to win the game should be paid handsomely. And in fact, if you do win, you get paid even better for that. So I hope that's an approach and a philosophy that they take into this whenever they do address it.
Yeah, that's another pet peeve of mine, is I feel like winning or losing doesn't really affect the outcome of the match very much. And I think in public matches, that disparity between a win-loss should probably be smaller than something like, Faction Warfare or PC.
Oh, yeah,
but it still feels like, I lost, but whatever, I'm still getting paid. I mean, personally, I play to win, but it doesn't encourage a winning play style if you don't reward actually winning. And I think if you make people actually try because they know, well, shit, if I don't actually go cap that objective, I'm not going to get paid very well for this round. It might get them off their asses sitting on the ridge line with their sniper rifle and actually go out and do something, which I know is a big complaint of a lot of players.
I want to see more in pubs that be based on your personal capability, so that you're not hindered by noobs on your team losing for you.
Yeah.
But in FAC War, it should be really, really heavily play to win.
Well, I think personal performance should definitely be a major factor, but I still think there should be a multiplier for a win-loss regardless,
I think the compensation should be better across the board in pubs, and I think it already gives, a 20% increase for the winning side or something along those lines. But
it seems like it.
Yeah. But yeah, clearly, even if you're playing really well, and you get a lot of war points or whatever performance indicators that you want to count for this, you should definitely get paid handsomely, win or lose, a little more on the win side. But in pubs, definitely you don't want to not pay people because their team didn't play well. But again, if we take the fear out of the game, this risk averse sort of approach that a lot of people have, I think that'll actually improve too.
Yeah, I mean, I fall off the same pitfall where I'm a self-proclaimed BPO lover because I love running cheap suits because I like to earn money, and I feel that my style of gameplay is very aggressive, so I get a lot of kills and I die a lot. So my KDR is normal, but my ISK efficiency, if I use stuff that's expensive, is actually quite low. So I use the cheap stuff so I can play aggressively. But if I had a bigger payout, I would definitely actually use higher level gear instead of the standard stuff.
Yeah, that's the idea for sure. And it's more fun to use the better stuff too. I mean, if people have more money and they use more fun gear, I mean, that's just good for player morale too. I mean, everybody knows that a proto suit is more fun than a basic suit. There's just no doubt about it, for various reasons.
It also allows for some more flexibility in your fits and whatnot. Because I mean, the standard suits are pretty limited in what you can fit on them. And I mean, granted, a high level suit lets you put more of the same thing, but it also lets you be a little more flexible, and you can afford to, maybe put some dampener on there or something, a little more creative with it. Whereas in a standard suit, you've got the bare minimum. You have to put certain stuff on it just to survive. Where I think the high level stuff with the more slots, you can have a little more fun with it, which I would also enjoy having the option to do. But like you said, the payouts are just not high enough where I can really afford to play the way I like and still actually maintain a positive ISK flow.
And, clearly, even though PC's changed a bit, there are still people that are, incredibly wealthy, and they still have these, massive ISK accounts. They get to run the proto stuff, whereas everyone else who didn't enjoy that experience and wasn't a member of a PC team doesn't necessarily get to do that. So if you can up the ISK payouts, you sort of cut down on that disparity a bit. You give people a chance to run good stuff, and really for the rich people, they're so rich at this point. Giving them more money doesn't really change things for them either way. They were never going to run out to begin with, so just allowing more money into the economy is really going to help the lower level people rise up and not really do anything to change where the former PC players or current PC players are.
Well, especially since we're at a point where there's never going to be a dust economy or market, so ISK payouts really can't do damage at this point other than letting people run better stuff. So I'm far less cautious about it now that we know that we aren't going to be getting a player market for dust, so we can afford to do stuff like that a little less cautiously, and then kind of just reward people and let them have more fun with the game rather than trying to save and hoard their money just so they can run a good suit every once in a while rather than most of the time.
Yeah, because that's a really sad thing when you hear these players who budget to use one proto suit a match, and then they have to jump back into their basic gear or their BPOs. I hate the fact that there are people out there that have to do that type of thing when there are people like me who can just if I want, I can run proto all match, and I feel bad about it, but I enjoy those suits more because they're more fun to use. So I feel bad, but at the same time, I'm not going to be a martyr for the people who can't enjoy that same experience. But I want them to be able to play at my level, not so much me go down to theirs, but I think if you can get those payouts up, you can help them experience that sort of level of play more often, at least.
Well, and it's also frustrating for people like me where we're not extremely, wealthy,
Mm-hmm.
but we've got skills maxed out and weapons maxed out and
Yeah.
suits all the way maxed out, but I still run BPOs because, again, I can't really afford it. So my SP is only worth the bonus. It's not worth the unlocks, which is a little disheartening considering the time and effort put in to actually unlock those things.
Absolutely.
It's kind of an interesting topic to actually touch on for Legion as well, and in terms of we kind of got a conversation starting in the Skype chat here about tier aside and having, like I mentioned, that we'd have the higher level suits give you more flexibility in the fitting, but you can't necessarily do that without making lower level suits too strong and upper level suits too weak. But in a kind of a half tier side, as Iron Wolf is pointing out, the concept being that you give all suits the same slot layouts regardless of tier, but their fitting options are more limited for the lower tier, so you can't put as good modules on there, but it still allows you that flexibility I was talking about. And it makes it a little more interesting rather than I've got 4 slots, I have to put HP mods in there to stay alive.
Yeah.
So that's definitely something to look at, and I'm kind of curious what their plans are for Legion in that regard, because they have mentioned that it's going to be a tier aside sort of drop suit system. Unfortunately, I'm guessing you guys don't have much insight on Legion. I know they're kind of blackboxing the whole thing, which is disappointing.
Nothing we can talk about, basically.
Yeah, it was it was a bit of a depressing moment. Earlier today, I got an email from Star Citizen, and I'm not one to hop on the hype train for that game, but I do subscribe to their newsletter. And every week, or every month rather, they release a newsletter, and there's a rather lengthy bit from each part of the development team talking about this is what we did, this is what we want to do with screenshots, conceptual art, and whatnot. And it's interesting. It's kind of cool to watch and see it actually developed over time. And I'm not necessarily giving my own feedback on it. Like I said, I'm not too into the game. I subscribe because I think it's interesting, but the fact that we don't have any sort of information coming out of CCP for Legion development is kind of sad when you've got a game like Star Citizen, which could very well potentially threaten EVE's existence due to what it's trying to do. I wish CCP would read the writing on the wall and actually realize that, hey, we should probably be a little more vocal about this. I mean, I was talking to Cross earlier, and I said, it's kind of sad. I feel like a smoker digging through an ashtray for some old used cigarette butt. I mean, I'll go and look at the Project Legion form and look at the little screenshots they released for the market, and just kind of ooh and ah at them again for the nth number of time, because that's all we've got, and it's kind of pathetic. But it's like people are starving, myself included, just for any sort of information whatsoever.
But here's the thing to bear in mind. So I've actually I'll just disclose here. I got a 325A, which is kind of a cheap but mid-range attack vehicle. Small, whatever, on Star Citizen, and I think that was probably like $60, I think. And then and I liked that. That was cool. And then they released the game, the actual like hangar module where you could go in and look at your ship and get inside your ship if you had one of the ships that they, like the 3 ships they had ready for it. And I thought it was really cool and it was pretty. So then I bought a Super Hornet, which is like $120 ship or something like that. And I got an Avenger, which is like a $60 ship. So I've given them a couple $100 as disclosure here. But the reality is, Star Citizen is going to horribly underdeliver, because they basically promised everyone everything. They said it would be, you could play it standalone offline, you could run private servers, there will be a persistent world universe that RSI maintains. So they've said it's going to be, every single way of playing a game you could ever want. They're saying it's going to have first-person combat, there's going to be ship combat, there's going to be, a full developed economy, that NPCs are going to be moving stuff if you don't. That actual thing, all basically everything that's in the universe will be there because something in some place actually did move it. There's just so much they've promised, and then the stretch goals have been like, sure, we'll add on that, and we'll add on that, and we'll add on that, and we'll make that, and that, and that, and that. And there's just so many things that they've promised over the course of the last year with that game. There's no way, no matter how much budget you put into it, no matter how much of, effort and resources, you're gonna underdeliver because they promised everyone everything. So really, to me, Star Citizen is like watching a train wreck in very slow motion. It's still looks like it's perfectly fine. It's still on the tracks, looks like it's going, but you can see the other train coming at it the other direction. You know it's just a matter of time.
Well, it's what happened with Destiny, and it's the same reason I haven't hyped. I didn't jump on the hype train for
And
Destiny.
Destiny had, like, 3-4 times the budget that Star Citizen has.
Right, and I'm not, and that again, that's why I didn't jump on the hype train for Star Citizen. I mean, I bought a ship, but I didn't spend hundreds of dollars. I just bought one of the lower. I think it's like $45 for the pack I bought. Just out of curiosity to see how it goes. It wasn't a big deal. But my point being though is that when you've got a game that's actually actively talking about what they're doing, even if it's obviously they're pushing their expectations a little too high, but in contrast to Destiny, Legion, where we are getting nothing except a screenshot months ago, of the market system, which probably doesn't even look the same anymore. It's a little disheartening because if you had that kind of communication with the player base, if you actually had them pushing out, even if it was just minuscule little bits of information, just like, here, we're writing a newsletter, we're working on this is what we'd like to do, no guarantees, you'd have such a much more positive player base of people that are actually excited for the game. I mean, you got lots of Dust players that are saying, I'm waiting for Legion to come out, but the bitterness is strong. It's very strong in the community, and the lack of communication is really just making that worse. And they could do themselves so many favors by just saying, this is what we're doing, this is what we'd like to do, just talk about it, and keep the expectations realistic, but at least get out there and show that you're doing something. I mean, post FanFest we had Rouge posting a little bit, and that's since dried up. So I mean, I know I'm just bitching here, but my point being is that they could be doing so much more for their community and actually drumming up support for the project if they just talked about it. And I obviously can't comment on internal CCP politics or what's going on, and you guys probably can't either if you know anything at all. But if CCP is listening to this, I mean, come on, guys, you're being blown out of the water in terms of communication by other companies, and look at the support they're getting, even if it is train wreck in slow motion. It's support, and I think you really need to take a hard look at how you're handling this and see what you can do to make it better for yourself and better for the players instead of just black boxing like you have been.
Well, not to defend CCP, but I would like to point out an example of something that could have happened but didn't, and it was smart on the company side to do this. How many of you have heard of Project Titan? Well, if you haven't heard about it, it's a MMO sci-fi first-person shooter that Blizzard was supposed to come out with, and it was supposed to help define.
This could be the next World of Warcraft.
Yeah, the next genre-defining game, and it was in development for 6 years as a project, and I wasn't supposed to find out that it was a MMO shooter back then, and the rest of the world now knows it, but overall, they did not say a single peep about it. They didn't show any screenshots of it. There still are no screenshots of it. There were never dev letters about it. There was not a single peep about it. Had they been like hyping it like they have, well, the way Destiny has been hyped, and then finally canceled it, that would be so much more worse in terms of Blizzard community and customer relationships.
Yeah, and so the inherent point there is that there is actually no commitment. It's not greenlit. There's no commitment that Legion is for sure going to be a game. But that I think they could talk more about it because they went. I mean, they did go and actually announce it at FanFest. I think that was probably, if anything, a mistake. But now that they've said it exists, I think that they should be talking about it more than they are.
Yeah, I mean, post FanFest announcement, I mean, if you're going to announce it in that manner, okay, it's not greenlit, I get that, but how long is that going to take to actually get that support? Because, I mean, people are getting antsy, myself included. It's like, if you're going to say that it exists, you need to talk about it then. I mean, the difference between this and the Blizzard example is the fact that no one knew it existed at that time, or at least in the amount of detail that we know about Legion.
People knew something called Titan existed, but...
Right. It was on their finances report, but that was about it.
Yeah, and then if you make a big deal about it and like, this is our big FanFest announcement, well, fuck, guys, you gotta actually talk about it then. I mean, even if it's just minimal just having conversations, collecting feedback or ideas, that would go a long way. But there's nothing. I'm not saying hype it like Star Citizen or Destiny. I mean, that, like you said, that's a mistake. That's a train wreck waiting to happen. But we need more than what we're getting, and it's really frustrating. I know a lot of players are frustrated, especially with
Right.
the kind of stuff you're seeing from other companies.
And I know personally, and this might be something partially based on stuff that I heard from CPM Zero, but I remember before FanFest, there was the indication that Rouge wanted to talk, wanted to tell everyone about stuff and talk to people on the forums, and couldn't until FanFest, and then he hasn't really said much since. And that is one thing that to me was bothersome, but I'm not sure if that was as much someone at CCP saying, oh, well, he wants to talk to people, or, and be really active, or if that was, CPM members. I don't remember.
He needs a clone, maybe two.
Yeah. I mean, it's. I didn't mean to go on a rant there. I know I did, but it's just one of those things that is a problem, and I wish they would address it because it is a problem, and they're just not. And like you said, there was much talk that, oh yeah, we're getting Rouge in here. It's gonna be awesome. He's very, excited to be, more active in communication with the community, and that fell flat. And now I don't know if that's CCP telling him, no, don't talk to anybody about it, or if that's his personal choice. I'm not sure. Again, I don't know anything about the internal politics. That's not something for me to know. But, it's like CCP needs to not be so knee-jerk in how they handle their PR relations. I mean, obviously FanFest was a mess, but the last thing they should be doing is clamming up like they are. So, I hope it changes soon. I mean, I really do. I mean, the stuff happening with Dust is great, but we all know it's got a timeline on it. And knowing that, we need to know what's going to happen next and where it's going to go when that's eventually over, whenever that date is. So I do hope they get wise and understand that they need to do something soon.
Well, I have to agree that they do need to talk, but there's the thing about the level of hype is it doesn't always depend on what they plan. It's what the community does with it. If you release the most mundane picture of a game that everyone's so hyped up about, they're gonna hype it to crap.
Yeah, but I think there's also company-driven momentum behind hype. If the company is pushing the hype to go higher, that's going to make it escalate to Destiny levels where it's just like I'm rolling my eyes like, guys, you're all fooling yourself. But I think that there could be more done. But I get what you're saying. I don't mean to bicker here.
Well, I'm not trying to argue either. As I said, there's always factors that are beyond initial thoughts and plans.
Sure. Yeah, no, I get that there's probably more going on than I personally see and you guys probably see, so I don't mean to sound like a dick about it, but just as a member of the community, I'm just voicing my frustration that a lot of people share. But I think we should probably move on before I keep ranting here. One thing that was requested we talk about tonight is actually BPOs in general. We kind of touched on it earlier with the increased payouts, but recently CCP's been opening up and releasing previously existing BPOs. We did the vote for the Sever BPOs, and that included the 4 originals that we had back in the day, and they recently added, I think, the Toxin SMG, didn't they?
Toxin SMG is back on the market, yes.
So, I mean, it kind of, I'd like to get your guys' thoughts on BPOs in general. Should we continue fleshing them out? Are they fine as is? Do you think they should die in a fire? What do you guys think?
I say they should continue on pursuing BPO routes. They just need to work out the cost a bit. I mean, we get plenty of plain Jane things, but they're almost the same price as the custom colored ones, and the custom colored ones are the ones that are supposed to be special.
I mean, do you think we should continue with giving a BPO for all standard equipment and weapons, not just the ones we currently have?
Yes.
Eventually, we just need to stay away from the HAV and dropship BPOs.
Yeah, those were the two that I think I'd be pretty scared to see. I mean, I almost wouldn't mind a dropship BPO, but the perfectly valid concern on something like that would be the tendency to use it to ram things. Namely other dropships, and I'm perfectly in support of dropship ramming. I think it's a valid tactic. I think it's a very important and great tactic, but I don't think that one should be a BPO. I don't think that ability should be free.
Now, so you're saying that you don't support BPOs for HAVs or dropships, even if they're just militia grade?
No, I wouldn't do a BPO dropship. I would like to see BPO labs come back. I think that would be great because I mean it's my most used BPO personally. I don't want to spend money. I don't want to spend ISK to go from point A to point B, but maps are so freaking big, and having the ability to just call in a lab for free just to get to the other side of the map is really, really useful. And I think newer players should have an opportunity for that.
Well, especially since so many opportunities for veterans to get those BPOs has been around, I think it seems only fair that we make it available to people who are a bit newer, especially with the player counts actually rising. With new players joining, it's always frustrating for me when I get a new player that asks you, "Well, where do you get the BPOs?" And it's like, "Well, you weren't around back then, so you don't get them," which is a little frustrating for them when, like we discussed earlier, payouts are so low and they're trying to use lower end stuff just to make money, and it's difficult to maintain even with low grade equipment.
Yeah, I think BPOs are great. I think players like them even just from a collection standpoint, and it was always kind of crazy to me that they left in the first place. I mean, I know they had some kind of plan and reason for why they were doing that, but it seemed a little. It seemed like they jumped the gun on that a bit because clearly whatever plan they had that was related to removing the BPOs never actually went in place. So. I think it's great that they're back. They should have never left, and I hope they continue to put more out there for people, because I think for the people who enjoy BPOs, they're the ones who will likely continue to buy more of them. So, take advantage of that revenue stream while it lasts, for sure.
Now, you say you're against the vehicle BPOs. What do you feel about vehicle module BPOs? I mean, obviously,
I have no problem with those.
You're in support of those?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, I wouldn't want to set up a double standard where you've got infantry with their militia BPOs, yet the vehicles can't have them. I think if you're at least paying for the frame, you should put them on there, especially since, again, they exist in some degree. I mean, I have all the BPOs that were released back in the day in terms of modules and weapons, so I have them. I use them from time to time depending on the fit, and I like to see new players who actually want to try that out. Especially since vehicles are kind of a pain starting off. It's kind of daunting to train all those different modules and whatnot, because it's not like a drop suit where you can just slap on, pretty much whatever and perform. Vehicles are a little more finicky, I think. So it would be good to give people that option. So I'm in support of that. Actually, again, Cross couldn't make it. Him and I were talking about this earlier, so he, was talking about BPOs and asked for me to kind of forward his opinion about them, if I can pull it up here real quick. Yeah, so basically, he supports the LAVs, particularly bringing in armor BPOs, not just the Sakas that we have for the Shield Kaldari ones. I think that's pretty legit, because sometimes I want to run an armor BPO because I don't use them primarily for transport all the time. I'll actually use them for other uses, and in many cases, I prefer the armor fit for various reasons. So I think that's pretty cool. Bringing back BPOs for all the infantry, again, I'm a big supporter of that too. There's some missing ones, I think. Maybe some BPO E-War stuff. I don't think we have all of those at this point.
I don't think they ever had them in the first place.
Yeah, like I said, I have all of them that were available back in closed beta when they were cheap. So I don't think I have those. What are you guys' thoughts on BPO turrets for vehicles? Not just the modules, but the turrets themselves.
A bit iffy on that.
Yeah.
I'd rather continue dropping the prices like we've been doing so far, especially for the small ones.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to get to a point where it's almost too much, where you can run a tank for basically free. I think that could cause issues. I mean, obviously the LAV is a little different. It's used mostly for transport, so that's kind of in a weird place. But like Xel said, I think bringing in vehicles, dropships, and tanks could cause issues more with the meta and less so much with the actual gameplay, with ramming and other shenanigans that could be possibly done. So, I think in general, I think BPOs are really good. I'd like to see more of them. I think they help people who want to just kind of dick around and try stuff. I mean, for me personally, it's, if I don't care and I just want to go around and be an idiot for a night, it's cool to run free fits, and unfortunately, I've actually based my training on a lot of skills off of the BPOs. Like I went into assault rifles initially because I had the Exile, and if I had the BPOs of other stuff, I'd be more likely to train those. So I think that would be really cool and making it a little more fair between the races. Because I mean, obviously, guns that existed early on are probably going to get more attention in terms of skill training because of the existence of those BPOs over other ones.
Well, they got the sidearm BPOs in for the sidearm event, so that was nice.
Those are militia grade, right?
Yeah.
See, that's interesting for me because I mean, they're obviously standard levels. BPOs exist. You've got the standard suits that they recently released. The Toxin is a standard grade BPO. So I mean, will they release a militia BPO and then potentially a standard one as well for a higher price?
Most, if they do, it'll probably be part of a PSM package instead of the standard buy through the game variety.
Right. Like I think Drun stuff tends to be standard grade, and that was a pack.
Yeah, I think it's good. I think that would really help people and kind of enjoy the game a lot more.
Yeah, and part of the big thing though for the sidearms being militia grade, anyways, in this case was that it's militia grade ones that count for the event.
Yeah, I think that was good for a lot of people. I mean, militia items are cheap as hell, so I typically don't care. But it's nice that if I'm going to do the event, yeah, and you don't have to worry about it. Yeah, I mean, I think BPOs in general, if we were going to be getting a dust market and BPOs were going to still perform the way they work the way they do, where it's just a free item that's poofing out of nowhere, I'd probably be against it. But obviously, ISK will likely not transfer to Legion if that happens, but assets probably will in the way they're talking about BPOs. They don't necessarily have to perform the same way they do, and I would actually suggest that they don't. I think that an item that's completely free in New Eden is not a good thing. Save maybe basic starter fit stuff, which is similar to your civilian ships in Eve. But regardless, I think that releasing BPOs at this point into Dust is not going to cause any harm to the game. It's going to just enhance it, which at this point, whatever you can do to make the game more enjoyable to the players, I think is really key. So I'm glad to see them kind of getting away from that fear of BPOs because they can always make them perform differently in Legion. That's not something they have to worry about here. So I think that, it's good. I think it's a really good move, and it's actually kind of reinvigorated a lot of interest for me because I can go in and run different kinds of BPO stuff for the ones that I don't have, hopefully in the future when they add them. I don't know if you guys can comment on it anymore, but we've touched on this in the past that their plan last time I heard was to make all drop suits BPOs in Legion. Can you guys comment if that's still the plan, or do you guys not know, or what's going on?
As we heard with Rescue us last time, that was the current plan, so we have no idea what has happened since then. We'll try to get a meeting with the guy in charge and hopefully get something out public if we can.
What are your guys' thoughts on that in general? Because I
like the idea. I'm not sure if I'm totally comfortable with how it'll play with New Eden.
Yeah, that's where I kind of shy away because I mean it makes sense what they describe that okay, you earn the suit, it's yours. You shouldn't be afraid to use it because it's a higher grade. But at the same time, I don't like stuff poofing out of nowhere into existence. I like the fact that New Eden has an active industry where you actually have to make everything. I think that's really awesome and makes it unique. And I hate to see that diminished with the existence of items that are unlimited.
Well, it goes back to player agency, the feeling that you are a person in the universe, and that was the angle that CCPZ was trying to sell with this, is that he wanted players to actually feel like people. So without a clone avatar like New Eden pods currently enjoy, the only way to express ourselves is through our suits. So the idea is to make the suits, BPO suits, very customizable in terms of appearance. It's just one of those things that would be more critical for trying to keep players interested in the game.
Yeah, especially for people like me who will pretty much buy vanity stuff all the time because it's just what I like. Having the option to customize a suit and make it unique, and if you want to charge me for that, sure, I'll pay for that because I do like that stuff, and I think a lot of people feel the same. So in that regard, from a marketing standpoint, I think that's pretty legit. I worry about how it actually ties in with the the industry aspect of New Eden. I mean, it may not be a big deal if they want to push off, make all the modules and weapons and all that manufactured, have the suit itself just happen to be, kind of part of your clone, so to speak. I guess I can buy that. I'm iffy on it, but I can be sold the idea.
I would love to see the actual Avatar thing come out though someday for Legion. I would love to see like the character creator from Eve.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I was playing around with, I was for whatever reason logged into Eve, and I was looking through the New Eden store and happened to notice something that I kind of liked. And I was like, that's kind of neat. I've got some free orb they gave me early on, and it's not anything meaningful. It just makes me look a little different in my captain's quarters. But I grabbed it. It wasn't a big deal. But it's stuff like that where it's kind of like, okay, yeah, I feel like that character is my own now, and I think that is pretty legit. That's why I could probably be sold on the idea if I can get past the whole industry aspect of it.
And that was the idea behind keeping the industry aspect, is that modules and weapons will still be consumable, and that will be a less frustrating experience than losing your suit every time.
Right, and if you actually have a true tier aside system, you can get away with something like that because what you fit is more important than necessarily what grade suit you're using, because they're all technically the same grade, And so, Iron Wolf, I think you mentioned in the chat you wanted to talk about the officer weapons that they're adding to Dust.
Oh yes, they're the winners of the first round of destructive data mining have all been named, and the weapons are still being designed. CCP Large Bro is still looking on feedback on some of these, as well as doing technical evaluations for some of these things. But some of these variants do not exist in the game currently.
Yeah, I heard from Cross, actually. I was very surprised. I figured you guys would just make carbon copies of existing BPO weapons and add a new name to it, but I'm actually excited that you're actually making it a new variant of the weapon. That's really legit.
One of the more interesting ones would be the fully automatic shotgun.
As people are terrifying and running away from the scouts, laughing their asses off right now. That's gonna be kind of scary. I think the other one was a plasma cannon with 2 shots in the magazine or something like that.
The assault plasma cannon.
Oh, that's awesome. Now, is that going to be just an officer, or are they looking at actually making that a standard weapon?
We do not know yet. Maybe these are test grounds for new variants. Who knows? So if these do turn into new variants, then cool.
Yeah, I think that's actually really cool. You're making it something unique and not just a proto weapon on steroids, so to speak, in terms of officer gear. Making it something that's a little different, like you said, kind of a testing ground. That's really cool. So I was pleasantly surprised to hear that. I was a little shocked, but that's cool that you guys are.
I think it was with the original officer weapons too, that they were often just a different type of experience than you could necessarily get out of a normal weapon.
Yeah, most of the original ones were deflections off the baseline, and recently with some of these rerolls, some of these other side grades have been rerolled as different variants. Most notably, the most recent one would be the Bollock sniper rifle, which very few people have, and that has been rerolled as a tactical.
Very nice. Yeah, because like you said, the old officer ones were spin-offs of existing weapons. Like I think the Crimson assault rifle had 90 rounds instead of 80, which is nice, I guess, but it doesn't feel unique. Where like a full auto shotgun, that's like holy crap. Dare I say, it actually kind of has like an exotic weapon feel, like in Destiny, where it's the same frame as existing weapons, but a little extra twist on it to make it different. So that's pretty cool.
The laser rifles heat buildup, if you got an MR Assault 5 equipped to this something, will never hit the breaking point.
Wow, so you will reload before it overheats?
You'll reload before it overheats.
That's terrifying. Laser rifles are another weapon that I've enjoyed using. I like the weird ones, and that's kind of a niche weapon, but it's a lot of fun. So that's cool to see. I'm hoping to get some of these in drops.
There were some good times back in Chromosome with the laser rifle. That weapon used to be like God mode.
Well, I think it was ambush. He spawned into Modest Peak ambush. It's like, okay, grab your laser rifle, because all the hard points in that map are basically where people would spawn. Okay, they were all about 60 meters apart, and you would just sit and cook each other the whole time because that was the weapon to use. So it was
yeah. Well, it was that or snipers, and laser rifles ate snipers for breakfast, which was fantastic in its own right. I thought that was a really cool game mechanic when it seemed to play that way, that laser rifles were like the best anti-sniper because snipers have to stay still to get off a shot, and lasers cook things sitting still very quickly.
Yeah, I think it's one of the more underappreciated weapons in the game. I mean, for a while, it was obviously ridiculous with the Visium. I think it was Visium laser rifle that was just decimating everything, and then they got nerfed into oblivion. But they brought them back up, and they're actually pretty legit now. So, if you guys haven't used a laser rifle in a while, I encourage you to go try it out. Just even the basic one, they're a lot of fun in certain situations. So, they're, like I said, go out and give it a shot. I'm always encouraging people to try out new things in the game and train everything to level 1. You know, give every standard weapon a shot, every standard suit a shot, and just give a feel for it. Because I think we get so stuck in the mindset of specialization and diving in deeper to our own little segment of the game that we forget that other parts of it exist. And I think it makes it a lot more enjoyable, at least for me personally, if you can go into the game and try different things out, like the laser rifle or the bolt pistol. It's ridiculousness in recent updates, but try things out. It makes the game much more fun, and it's brought me back into more activity, just trying things out, especially with movement and adding new weapon variants and whatnot. I know Iron Wolf had a thread in the forums asking for ideas in terms of variants of existing stuff and whatnot, and it's enjoyable to read people's ideas. So again, if you're on the forums or if you're not in the forums, log in there, give your feedback, or just read. Forum lurkers are always fun, so you should definitely check that stuff out.
I miss the days where I could preheat my laser rifle, then sweep it over a target and melt them.
Oh yeah, I still do that. It's awesome.
Also, like as I said, CCP Algebra has hijacked my thread, but he's also looking for feedback on anything of the new officer weapon stats, which is in the thread. You can find it easily in general discussion.
That's good stuff. Are you guys planning on doing the same sort of thing with the, I guess, officer sidearms then, giving them a little extra twist?
Who knows? We'll have to see when they get the winners finally.
Nice.
And with so many more variants of our current weapons that are still missing officer variants, I can see another round of destructive data mining being possible.
Yeah, I think the event's good. I'm glad they made the shift back to lower end gear rather than the prototype stuff. I think it made it more accessible to everyone in general.
Well, and the fun part to me is now you can go all the people who usually pub stomp you can go kill them because they've got militia sidearms.
Well, yeah, that's going to happen no matter what you do, though.
Yeah, but that's kind of the funny part of the event, is that it does get some of the tryhard proto stomp crowd using a pretty weak weapon. So players should actually have an easier time going up against them.
Yeah, I had a guy come at me with prototype cavalry assault with like a militia bolt pistol or something. It just ripped me apart, and I'm like, how many sidearm damage mods you have stacked on that thing? He's got this militia gun on a proto suit that's armed to the teeth. It was pretty crazy. So it's kind of fun to see people doing weird fits like that. But overall, I think it's definitely good to make it more accessible to people. I think when I logged in, the first thing I did was make a kind of a standard suit, and then I had 4 versions of it with each sidearm just to try them all out. And I kind of cycled through each one in each match just to try it out. Where before it was like, I only have a couple weapons to proto, so what am I going to do with the last data mining? So I've enjoyed it a lot more this time around.
Yeah, CCP does listen to feedback.
Well, more so now than before, but that's good.
Well, when it always came to events, that was one thing we always did try to strive for, was making it better for everybody.
Yeah,
and there were a lot of changes to the SP event, especially. That changed like almost every time they ran it. It ran a little differently until they got to the system they got now.
Well, which that's good. It makes it more interesting.
The 5 times generation on active and triple cap. That was like, there were 4 or 5 times they tweaked the SP event before they got to that.
Yeah, I mean, I remember before, I think it was just a higher cap without a multiplier or something like that, and it was just like a painful grind to get it all out in 1 week.
Yeah, that was the worst.
Well, it was triple full cap and triple active generation. And so it was in fact more grinding to get there, because the active is kind of the smaller component of the two of your SP you get in a match.
Yeah, no, it's like you said, I'm glad they actually have tweaked it. It feels pretty good now. I don't feel like it's overly grindy, but it's definitely rewarding. And I've always enjoyed the Million Clone Challenge. I think it's kind of cool to to see people get together and actually kind of work towards a common goal. And again, I'm impressed that we still hit, what was it, like 2.4 million? I forget what it was, with a supposedly diminished player base, but we still hit it with a DDoS attack going on. So, that's really cool that people actually logged on and took part of that. That's really good to see.
I think it's at least proof that a player base isn't dramatically diminished or anything like that. People would like to sell you that it is.
Well, that's the bitter vet talking. Like I said, the bitterness within the community is palpable, and I try to keep my patience with it, but sometimes I'm like, just shut up. You're being irrational and being overly negative, and it gets annoying after a while.
And I think the notion was that we would have actually broken 3 million if we hadn't had the DDoSing, because it really just took the peak off of the biggest and busiest day. It just flattened when the DDoS hit.
Was there additional stretch goal for 3 million? I forget.
No, but it would have been cool to hit it.
Yeah, for sure. But again, like I said, it's almost more of a testament to the activity of the player base to hit it despite connection issues. So, again, go Dust community. It was really cool to see that happen.
Yeah, I mean, we hit it, we almost broke our old record. We were, short 300,000, but that was, again, like, Saturday I didn't play at all because I tried to play and I couldn't, and so I signed back off, and I'm sure tons of other people did the exact same thing.
Yeah, I think I was actually playing mostly during that last show while we're talking. I had my Dust playing on my other monitor here, so I was shooting people then, so it was fun to be part of it. Like, again, it's always kind of cool to feel like an actual community working towards a singular goal rather than just our own little personal things each day. So, I always enjoy those sorts of events, and I hope we can have new spin-offs of it and some new variations, because events bring people in, and it's good to see people actually playing despite the bitterness and despite the issues that we have right now with, the Dust Legion problem and whatnot. So,
most people don't visit the forums either.
Yeah, which might be good, because the forums are an awful, nasty place that you really should never go unless you're already stuck there.
There's probably a lot of players who play just because they haven't seen the forums.
Well, it's nasty for the average person, but for Soraya, it's his playground. So
hey, someone's got to answer the bad post. Someone has to answer them, and I just like, what? Fine, I'll answer this post. This post is dumb. I try to be nice, but sometimes the inner troll just it comes out.
What is that saying that 10% of intelligence is how smart you are, 90% of knowing when to keep your mouth shut?
Yeah, well, I don't keep my mouth shut. That's just not a thing that happens.
Shit, buddy. No, but it's I make fun of you, but we always enjoy our resident troll. It's always, I guess, one corp always has to have a resident troll because they keep the other trolls in line. So you have your use.
Well, hey, there were people we talked, and it was very clear that we absolutely would not agree on certain topics, and people, there was one person that I was talking with on one thread, and I'm pretty sure they got somewhat of a dislike for me until they had another thread, and I'm like, this is like a great idea, and it's totally cool, and this is why you're awesome, and they're like, oh, okay, and I'm like, hey, look, we agree on something, and so that happens too.
Well, it goes back to like we said before, where if you actually sit down and talk to a guy face to face or on comms, more or less, you definitely get a different feel for the guy. People are a lot more chill than they often appear in the forum. So, I try not to get too engaged. I mean, my blood is boiled before, but you just got to remember that there are people that are just as passionate as you are, and they're just as interested in making the game better, or in your case, trolling other people. So, take it with a grain of salt. But I think overall, I always say that the forum and the community is toxic but awesome. So, you really got to appreciate it for what it is. Well, all right, guys. I think we're pushing about an hour and 20 here, so I don't want to go too much later. Is there anything else you guys want to talk about before we do final shoutouts?
I've had the joy of experiencing one of the worst tank squadrons in the game.
Oh, really? Tell us a bit about it.
It was 6 real tanks. On the militia ones, the armored militia ones. Was it the Maddie? Not the Gunlogi. What was it?
Isn't there a vehicle limit of 5?
It was basically the entire squad almost, and they called them all out, and they try to go after this one Madruger with missiles on it, and this Madruger pilot just tore every single one of them up by himself, 5-1.
That's
And the
awesome.
thing is, these guys rolled out again, twice.
Well, it's good to see that, someone who's actually specialized into the vehicle can actually still go toe to toe with overwhelming numbers on militia, because that was a big complaint of mine when the vehicle rework came out, that militia vehicles were basically as good as standard vehicles, and there wasn't much reason to use the more expensive frame. But I think recent changes have actually made that much less of an issue. So I'm happy to see that. And it's good to hear stories like that, because again, when you dump X million of SP into vehicles and then get one-shotted by a Soma with a railgun, it's a little frustrating.
Well, it just shows that also just knowing how to drive your tank is was just as much as part of knowing how to fit it, because the pilot that was driving the Madruger around, we knew what the hell he was doing, and these guys were just dogpiling on each other, just shooting each other, and they couldn't get a clear shot of the tank they're trying to destroy. So it was definitely a player skill, a heavy factor into that destruction of just 5 HAVs.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. All right, anyone else, or are we good to go for shoutouts here? Okay, then I guess we'll go with shoutouts. Let's start with you, Iron Wolf.
I'd like to give a shout out to that guy, Jesse Corrales, and everyone else that commented on my Dust 2.0 series. You can possibly find it if you Google it. Well, search it on the forums. But it's a nice collection of ideas that I'm just putting together just to show off.
Okay, SirManBoy.
Yeah, as always, a shout out to the Molon guys out there. You guys are great as always. And shout out to Cross for all the great work he's doing behind the scenes to improve support play and the Logi class. He's got some great things up his sleeve. Shout out to Hinox for his appearance last week. It was good to hear from him. He's one of the best personalities in the entire community, so that was cool. And shout out to Logi Bro and Ritati for doing all the hard work that you guys do. It's a pleasure to work with you, and like I said, it's awesome to see that this game is in the hands of two people who are not only very competent but also very passionate about working on the game. And like I said, I just wish more people in the community realized that, so that there were fewer people spreading rumors about the game. If they really knew what was going on behind the scenes with those guys, they might think twice about opening their mouth about things they don't know. So that's all I have to say.
Okay, Enzo.
Yeah, shout outs. I'll give a shout out to my alliance. Shout out to the South American community, which has been a huge part of Dust player base at this point, it seems. A lot of Spanish-speaking people who have joined actually my alliance, and cool guys there. And yeah, shout out to Logibro and Rotati as always.
Okay, and shout out for me. It's a shout out to my corp, OSG Planetary Operations, and Cross 2. I'm proud to have him in my corp and alliance. He actually got us all together on Dust and pulled people off of Destiny, which is a feat, to have a fun night of faction warfare. So that was a lot of cool. I always enjoy talking with him. He's a great asset to the community and to my corp as well. So he's cool to have around. Also, shout out to Godin in the Skype channel for keeping me entertained and screaming at me when the stream is not working properly and threatening to kill kittens when I don't fix it. So thanks, man. I appreciate your ongoing feedback and keeping things interesting during the podcast. So glad to have you. You should come on the show sometime. But yeah, so that's it, guys. Thank you for tuning in. If you are catching us on iTunes or during the stream, appreciate you listening to us. Your feedback is always
YouTube
appreciated.
as well.
And YouTube, when I finally get them updated.
When you do that, yeah.
When Zell's being passive aggressive because I've been lazy. But yeah, we'll get them on YouTube as well. So that's on iTunes, YouTube, on our website, biomassed.net. Lots of places you can get it. So give us your feedback, give us your thoughts. If you want to be on the show, even if you're just somebody in the community, we're glad to have you to come on and talk. You don't have to be anyone that's of community note to be on here. I mean, I'm a no name, so we're glad to talk to people, and we want more than just the CPM guys. We love having them here for conversation, but it's good to get different perspectives. So, if you want to be on the show, hit us up on Skype or on our emails available on the Biomassed website. So, thanks, guys. This is Pokey Dravon and the Biomassed crew signing off. Have a good night.